All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Stu and Dave, and this is Filling the Storehouse podcast. And we have a really, really cool guest today, Rich Fettke. I've been following you for a long time, man. And I'm super excited to have you on. I'll tell you, I watched one of your webinars years ago, and one of the quotes that you gave has honestly like kind of changed the way I look at life.
Wow.
And it's a quote you said, do something today that your future self will thank you for later. And I like printed it out, posted it on my vision board in my office, and
Awesome.
I look at it all the time. So I just want to say thank you. You've made a huge impact to me on my life. And we're going to dive into your story and the book that you just wrote. Also a huge impact. We just kind of read through that ahead of time, and it's been great, man. So welcome to the show. Appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Looking forward to it. This is great.
Yeah. So if you could, for our audience, most of our listeners are real estate investors, entrepreneurs, business men and women. But for those that maybe haven't heard of you, give us a little background, who you are, where you came from, and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe why I got into real estate investing, really going back. It was 20 years ago. I was on the top of my game. I had this amazing wife, Kathy Fettke, who some of your listeners might be aware of, and two wonderful daughters, a thriving coaching practice. And I just signed a book deal with Simon & Schuster. So I was feeling on the top of my game. And then I was diagnosed with melanoma, which is a skin cancer. I'm ginger, and it happens. The doctors, after they did a surgery to remove the melanomas from me, they asked me to get a scan to make sure that it hadn't spread, and they saw 4 masses on my liver. So after multiple tests and scans, I met with an oncologist, and he told me I had 6 months to live. So my daughters were 10 and 3, and it just rocked my world. And it rocked Kathy's world, because Kathy at the time was a stay-at-home mom taking care of our girls. And so she's like, what am I going to do here? And she had this small radio show in San Francisco that she was kind of a pay-to-play type thing, where she was interviewing people for coaching topics about getting the most out of life and being your best self and all that. And she's like, I have to scramble. I have to do something here to make ends meet if Rich dies. And so she started to have guests on her show that were financially successful, and they happened to be real estate investors, most of them. And so she started to get obsessed with it. She came home and she said, I know what I can do. I can invest in real estate. This is my way. And then luckily the doctor's diagnosis was wrong. The melanoma hadn't spread to my liver. It was just hemangiomas that show up as looks like cancer. But I got a PET scan that showed me that I was cancer free. But with every curse comes a blessing, really. And that's motivated Kathy to find mentors, to start investing, to get us investing. And we both went to Texas and bought a bunch of rental properties. And then we had friends and family and other people and listening to Kathy's show saying, how did you do it? And we just decided to form what we thought would be a small network of people, friends and family mostly. And today that network, 20 years later, has grown to over 64,000 members now. So we've helped a lot of people create financial freedom and improve their financial intelligence. So it's quite a blessing. So that's where we are today. Real Wealth is our company, and that's what we help people do. Kathy has her podcast, often out speaking at conferences like where I met you guys. And that's kind of the story. That's what brought us to where we are now, helping other people invest in real estate and doing it ourselves, walking the talk.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. And I'll tell you, it's funny because it was ringing through my head. Stu and I recently ran a number of just awesome dudes in our network through an exercise. And today, actually, after this meeting, they'll be reading us their eulogies. That was the assignment, is that we assign them to read their eulogies. And awesome. And for some of them, it was the first time they'd ever heard that concept. I know the first time I went through it was with a different group, but when you were talking about 6 months to live, like there's nothing more real. Like doing an exercise to write your eulogy is, it can be powerful, but a doctor telling you have 6 months to live.
You're like, you got to write it quick.
you better figure it out. But like you said, there's such blessing in the clarity that I know is a result of such a dire, diagnosis. But then to come out of it, to take action, man. Like you guys are amazing individuals, and I'm curious too on what you're doing before that, if it was the coaching or like the mindset to be able to not feel sorry for yourself and just wallow in that grief, waiting for, the inevitable, but to take action and to think about next steps. Like, I'm just curious, how did you get to that point? Like, were you guys, I know you were coaching. Is it just a developed mindset that really drove you towards that? How'd that happen?
Yeah. And there was a lot of tears. There was a lot of fear from me. I remember bouncing on the trampoline with my 3-year-old daughter, and we just started to laugh, and we fell down on top of each other. Well, she fell on top of me, luckily. And we're just giggling. And all of a sudden I just realized that I might not see her grow up or see her get married. And I just broke down in tears. So it's like, there was some tears in that, in those, it was several months of not knowing. And at the same time, Kathy and I actually met in a personal development workshop. It was a 3-month program where you set personal and professional goals, and you get very vulnerable and real, and you learn about mindset training and all that. So yeah, that helped a lot. It helped us focus not so much on the fear. And being an adventure athlete, I had dealt with a lot of fears of doing some crazy stuff and how to deal with those fears. So kind of brought that in as well, and just kind of connecting with that fear and being like, what do you need from me right now? And that really helped a lot.
That's incredible.
Was there anything that, after getting that news, like, was there anything that maybe you had been doing before that you were like, all right, I'm done cutting this out of my life. I'm changing the way I'm doing things. I'm changing my habits, or like, did you like start creating a list of everything that you wanted to do before, that time came? Like what was the like, what action steps were you like changing,
Yeah, there was, 2 things, yes and yes. So
Yeah.
one was this really cool confirmation, because I had been coaching for, it was probably, I don't know, almost 10 years at that point, and a little bit less, but I had been coaching and studying all this personal development, everything. So for me, I was really grateful that I was living life. And I used to take every Friday off to go do some type of adventure. I would always do the weekly date night with Kathy. And so there's a lot of things where I'm like, I said to Kathy, I'm like, I am so glad that I lived my life. I'm so glad that I didn't just, spend all my time in the office and not be around. So there was that confirmation and that blessing. And at the same time, what my big aha was for me was like, how have I been showing up as a person? Just like that eulogy exercise. It's like, how do I want to be? When I survive this, that was my mindset. When I survive this, what kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to shift? And it just had me become way more focused out, much more humble, much more present with the people I love and the people I care about, and really shifted from, I guess, a little selfish, in those, 30-year-old years, to really focusing on significance, and, focused out on how can I contribute? What's my purpose type stuff. So that was the biggest shift for me, is like how I show up. What's that best version of me, and how can I have that guy show up more often when I survive this?
I love that. And that's what, that's what you talked about at the Best Ever conference this last year was, being the best version of you, and showing up, and how do you do that? And, David and I have been on this journey in the last couple of years. We're reaching 20 years of military service. We're retiring, we're transitioning. It's a big transition to civilian life. And, we had been trying to build this business, our real estate business. And we kind of found ourselves in this spot where like we were just working all the time. We'd work on the real estate business, we'd go to Navy work, we'd come home, we'd work on the real estate business more, and we were just churning and trying to grow it and big it builder and hire people. And then like one day, like me personally, I was just like, and like this stuff, like the eulogy, writing the eulogy and figuring it out. And I was like, what am I doing all this for? And we had another guy on our podcast, and he had a similar type situation, and he told him, he said, my kids will never remember me for sitting in front of the computer and working more. Like they're going to remember me for like time spent with them and doing things with them. And it was a total wake up call for the both of us. And so, I'm curious kind of what habits are you doing on a regular basis, in your daily life, to be the best version of you, to focus on your growth?
I think it is so much about habits. I think you nailed it with that one. It's like, those it's almost like those algorithms, if this,
Yeah.
then that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like, if this happens, this is the way I'm going to show up. If I do this, yeah, I mean, I get up every morning and early. I get up at 5 a.m. every day. The first thing I do is meditate for 10, 15 minutes. There's gratefulness in there and prayer and just getting centered. So that's a huge one. And it has me reflect on who am I? How am I showing up? I do morning yoga and with some weird stuff mixed in there. Like I have to do 10 burpees and 10, 20 push-ups, and I do 100 crunches. And then I've been doing that for since 2008.
That's awesome.
So things like that just, one, develop that self-discipline part of the brain, and I love that we can actually improve our willpower and our self-discipline just by being self-disciplined. It actually activates and lays down neural pathways in that area of the brain that develops self-discipline. So I found that doing that, and the more consistent I am with the rituals that I've committed to, the more disciplined I become. And that shows up with the meditation too, because that's a discipline of being present and being aware and being in the moment. So I think it's just helped me really develop more of that. I still have a long way to go, but definitely learning how to be way more present with Kathy, with our daughters, with anyone, with friends.
Yeah. Meditating is
Yeah,
hard.
it is, especially for someone like me, man. I tell you what,
Yeah.
I am all over the place. But that exercise, I'm gonna try that exercise. Maybe I can walk myself through it that Ryan through in the book with the light going out into space and then coming back 10 years later. I like that. I think
Yeah,
I could
future
get through something like
self.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's future self, exactly. Yeah, and actually, one thing I did for the book, in the back, there's a resource center, and people can go to a website, and I've got a 10-minute future self visualization. So yeah, so you have to go check that one out. I think you'll like it, and just kind of guide you through that. And yeah, it's a cool process. I love that process. I've been doing the future self visualization for so many years, ever since college. It's been powerful for
It's
me, and
awesome.
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. And it's realwealth.com/backslash grow. There's a ton of awesome resources there from the book that that I am extremely grateful for. Free resources, anybody can go to them. It's great.
Yeah.
But one thing that you just said that I absolutely love, Stu and I are always talking about action, right? And what's really funny is people are asking me now more, every time we're kind of new back into the community here in Colorado, just moved back. I just came back 6 months ago, and people are like, hey, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I'm like, man, here's the deal. I am dedicated to starting this men's mastermind that we're starting. I was like, but I have to make it work, because I've gotten very, very used to making the kids breakfast every morning, taking them to school. This is stuff I couldn't do in the military. I've never done this. This is the last 6 months, but
Oh, wow.
taking them to school in the morning, picking them all up from school in the afternoon, walking back from the bus stop, being the first face they see when they come home,
Awesome.
and coaching my kids sports, and then date day. Friday is date day for my wife and I. We go on a hike. She's very active. She's much better shape than I am. I need to catch up, but we have these things that we built in, and then Stu and I have effectively a date day as well that we're setting for Thursdays. And so we're really prioritizing these things, and it's compressing the calendar. But what you said really it was very encouraging to me without you even knowing it. But it's, you choose to do these things, you choose to set the schedule, and then you prioritize, and you build around that. And effectively you just do it. And then when you said, hey, I told Kathy, I'm just so grateful I'm living life. I think we all wait to live life until a day that's not even promised.
Yeah.
And it just really impacted me as you're talking about that. I'm like, man, it's these things that you want to do. Everything else you have to figure out.
Yeah.
But the things that you want to do, you just do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you just set that as a priority. And I'm curious, because at the time you said you're doing that, you hadn't had all these investments. This was before, it sounds like you were still very deep in the coaching business. So you hadn't necessarily, quote unquote, made it, but you still did these things. I'm curious how you, like, just how that worked, and specifically financially where you were at the time that you're still choosing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we were doing decent with my coaching. I'm making a decent coaching income, and then I was also speaking. I was a keynote speaker, so that was building and growing, and then the book deal and everything. So doing well financially, definitely not financial independence. I was working for it, no doubt about it, transactional. Um, but there was a piece in there about, honestly, I think it was having my own coach, which I still do today. I talk to my coach every 2 weeks, and it was every week for a while, for many years, and then we just went to every other week. And basically, it's someone to hold up the mirror and to be bold and honest, and to be like, to not let me slip around, to be like, how are you living, Rich? How are you operating? And to rate, like in the book where the mentor John asked Ryan to rate these 10 areas of his life, and rating it between 0 and a 10, 10 being, completely satisfied, 0 meaning it just sucked. And he just went around and rated all these things. And that's what I was doing consistently too for my own life. I still do it today. I fill out one of those life wheels every 3 to 6 months, and just to check in and be like, am I living a fairly balanced life? I know it's never going to be balance and set, but it's constantly moving and shifts and all that. But it's a real big awareness creator, which I think that's the huge thing for coaching, and just having you look in the mirror and being aware of how you're showing up and how you're living life. So that's what really worked for me.
Let's talk about let's get into the book a little bit. So you just wrote a book called The Wise Investor, and it hit the streets. It's out on ebook right now, correct?
Yeah, came out ebook first. The audiobook will be out end of next month, and then hardcover in August, because we're just supply chain issues and waiting for the printers, all that stuff.
Okay. So what caused you to write this book? And if you could just give a little bit of the story of what the book is all about.
Yeah, it's so my first book was called Extreme Success, and it was a nonfiction book about comparing. Like I said, I'm an adventure athlete, so it's comparing extreme sports to success in business and life. So that was my first one 20 years ago. That was my book. I thought I read it. I mean, I wrote my book. I was done. And but my coach, I had sent him a copy of that, and he kept nudging me. He's like, "When are you going to write your next book?" And I'm like, "I'm done." But then we started to do story branding. Are you familiar with that? For the business? Yeah. So yes. Don Miller created this thing, comes from Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. And so we started about 4 years ago, we started to apply story branding. His book is Building a Story Brand. And so we started to apply that to real wealth, and seeing our customer as the hero, not us. And we're just the guide, and to really serve and to follow that hero's journey. And I got really into this whole storytelling thing. I just thought it was fascinating the more I learned about it. And I just mentioned that once in a coaching session. I'm like, if I was going to write a book, I'd probably do a story, like a parable. And then that was the spark. So
you do that with a good coach, and he's going to hold you to it.
It's like,
right?
boom.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, shit, should have I said that. So he did hold me to it. And it took me about 1.5 years. And it was just awesome, because Kathy and I interview on her podcast. We interview a lot of the members of our network to hear their journey, where they were, what they did, and where they are now. And so a lot of those stories, I was just like, man, I want to share this with the world. I want to share our story and what we've learned. And I also want to share these principles that so many people aren't aware of. I know a lot of your listeners are, but there's a lot of people who don't realize the benefits of real estate, say over stocks, right? Or crypto, or any of that, or just work in the W-2 and all that. So the story, basically, it follows this guy, Ryan Brooks, who he's a father, he's a husband, he's a really hardworking employee, but he works so many hours that he doesn't have time for his wife or his kids, or even his life. And then he meets this new friend and a new mentor who shows him just a different path to financial freedom and security for his family, for himself. And he just walks him through this. And it was a cool chance for me to really step back with this mentor and say, who is that wise mentor? And basically, it's my future self. If I turn out that good and that wise, it's my future self in the future. So I was able to just constantly come back from that and say, what advice would my future self give this guy? And how would he encourage him? And what lessons would he teach? and all that. So it goes beyond real estate investing. It's definitely a big part of it, but there's lessons around being a better husband, being a superior man, being a better dad, being more present, big lessons on how wealthy people think versus non-wealthy people think. He talks about what real wealth really is. And it's not just about making lots of money. It's about, and you guys read the book, so it's really about having the money, but also the freedom to live life on your own terms. And so there's a lot of lessons in that I just wanted to share. And I thought a story would, I know that a story connects more emotionally, and that elicits a change in people, where you can read a nonfiction book and get the facts and the figures and all that. But a story, it really does something to, and what I've learned through coaching it has people move, it has people take action, it has people shift their mindset, see things in a different way. So that's why a parable.
Yeah, it was incredible. One of my favorite lines in the book, I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but you said, I think John was talking, he said, some of the poorest people I know make the most money, or it was something like that.
Some people are so poor, all they have is money.
That's right. Some people are so poor. I love that line.
Yeah, so
because,
good.
and I read it like 4 times. I'm like, wait, what? And I kept reading it just to let it sink in, but it was such a powerful line.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and I would offer for our listeners that, depending on where you are in life, you're going to take different things from the story, but I think the financial advice and the mindset change versus employee and the wealthy, I think are extremely important and very intriguing. And I loved all that. But I think I really, really appreciated the mindset and the prioritization of life and the things that John was helping him come to. Because I think a lot of us also miss out on that piece. We don't realize that there are other ways to think, and we don't realize something as simple now to me that, hey, prioritization shows is time. Like my kids, like Stu had said earlier, my kids are not going to remember how much I worked for them, no matter how much I tell them I'm doing this for you and for our future. Well, is it really true? Is that what we're really doing? And are we really achieving that goal? And I think sometimes when we step back, we realize I want so much more, and it doesn't mean I want so much more money or cars or
right.
whatever,
or boats or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever it is.
Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, those are great. Those are great, but yeah, they're secondary.
Yeah. And so I really love that about your book, and you bringing out there were times I was sitting out yesterday finishing the book, and I'm looking at my kids playing, with power tools and stuff. So I was a little bit concerned, but they're doing that. And I'm reading this book, and I started like tearing up, I just got really emotional about, because the story makes you reflect on your own story, and my face was Ryan's face, and the moment
dude, you're making me
face,
tear up here.
well, I'll tell you though, it was so powerful for me, because I'm looking at my kids and I'm like, what am I doing with my life to honor what God has given me? And it's not the house, it's these little human beings, and they're gonna then emulate what I teach them.
Big time.
And that is I'm getting emotional too. Geez, we're just gonna have an emotional pod. We do this sometimes. We have emotional podcasts.
We have had some where we are all crying on our podcast before, so this might be another one.
I started wearing glasses. For that purpose. But no, I just want to thank you for that. But I also encourage people to look in the book, and really, I think there's so much richness, not only in the wealth advisement side of it, but in the life advisement side of it, and the prioritization, and recognizing, okay, I need to take stock of what I'm really doing this for. And they're so powerful.
That's awesome. I'm so glad I communicated that. And it's like, yeah, when I sat down to really think about what is it that I want to share, what are those big lessons that are just have a huge impact on me, and from those stories of our members at Real Wealth, that's, that was the big one. It was time and being present, and all that. And then the kind of the sub lessons under that were, taking good care of yourself. And some people are so poor, all they have is money line is because, Kathy and I live in Malibu, and there's a lot of money, there's a lot of wealth around here. I would say more money than wealth if we're looking at real wealth. And it's amazing. Our daughter went to Malibu High School, and she would come home and she'd tell us the stories about some of these families who have so much money, but their parents are never there, or there's, they're on the brink of a divorce or going through that. The kids feel completely just abandoned. So it's just like, Yeah, why? What's all that money for? I think the ego gets wrapped into that or something. So yeah, that's huge for me.
Well, and there's something else that you put in the book that I've never seen before and never really thought about it. And I don't know why, but I think John was explaining to Ryan about assets and liabilities, and he was going to, supposed to list out all of his assets and liabilities. And, you always normally you hear of an asset being something that provides money, right?
Right.
And a liability is something that costs you money. But you added some other things on there too that are also ability or are also liabilities and assets, or you're something that provides money, time, health, or happiness.
Mm.
And liabilities are those that cost time, health, happiness, and money. And I've never thought of assets and liabilities that way for those other things besides just money. And I loved it. It was like, oh yeah, like an asset could be something that just provides me better health or better happiness or more time to be able to spend with my family.
Yeah.
I thought that was really, really cool the way you put that in the book.
Awesome.
So I'm curious, like what are some of the things that you found are assets to helping you provide more health or like happiness or time? Just curious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that came, that was just like this aha on a hike. I was going through a difficult time with a friend. I'd been friends with him for probably about 8 years. And it was, we used to hang out a lot and go rock climbing together and surf together and do all this stuff. It was always a little bit of friction in the relationship. And then we had this falling out. He got in an argument with Kathy. I took Kathy's side. I just stuck up for my wife, and he got pissed, and our relationship fell apart, and he was just ghosting me. He wouldn't talk to me. And I was like, whoa, I've never had this happen. And when I look back and still now we're not friends, he's just written me off. And I was on this hike thinking about that, and it really hit me hard. He's a good friend. And I started to look at that going, wow, when I look back at our relationship, he felt kind of toxic and more of a liability is what came up for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, he was kind of like, he was detracting from my life in so many ways. I was always trying to please him and never really had that experience. So that's what kind of sparked it for me. And then I just, then came back and wrote that lesson down. And then it just kind of built from there. I'm like, wow, in our business, you talk about your business, right? What's the greatest asset? Your team.
Yeah.
Right. The people in your business. And it's like, well, those are assets. They bring you more income and more happiness and all that. And yeah, your health. And then I think our greatest asset is our mind. It's like what we can do with it. We can continue to grow and improve and learn. And so that's a huge asset too. So anything like that. So something can be an asset. I think of like, something like, getting a new surfboard or something, you know what I mean? It's an expense, right? And you can look at it as a liability, but that can bring a lot of happiness. So it's looking at it, putting through that filter and just say, well, let's see, this is kind of an investment. This is going to bring a lot of happiness over the years. So I'm going to buy this asset. So you can justify with it, but you have to be careful. But that's kind of the way I saw it.
I'm going to tell my wife that, a really nice new mountain bike is an asset because it's
absolutely
a lot of happiness over the next few years.
It sure does. Yeah.
Love it. I tell you, Rich, and you don't know this, but reading that book also, it gave me permission to embrace the idea of 3 very, very focused work days, creating what we want to do within the confines of spending time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then the time that Stu and I have set aside on Thursdays, while always fun, it's the focus is fun. There's so much richness in the conversation when we're relaxed, we're hiking a mountain, we're not fly fishing. Usually if we're fly fishing, I'm too busy catching fish and Stu's too busy getting his line out of the tree. But which can also be an exercise of patience, but next time we go, I'm gonna get skunked. But just the time together, the time to recenter, to focus, and then go to Friday where my wife, is focused on health and wellness, a business she's trying to grow. but the time that we spend in the mountains, talking about the kids, talking about our marriage, all those things those assets have paid so much more, so many more dividends
Mm-hmm.
6 months than being completely chock full with a Navy command job from sunrise to sunset, and then running a business on either end of that, and then fitting kids in there. And even the way I say that, fitting kids in there,
Yeah.
you actually, like, I've been very much focused and enjoying it, but reading your book just gave permission to realize the most wealthy people in the world are not always those with the most money. And so that just to pile on what Stu said, I'll be honest with you, that was mind blowing for me
Awesome.
to put assets and liabilities and to count things that take time or energy away and add time and energy. Because if I'm fulfilled and I'm full of energy, like last night, I could not sleep because of you. I blame you, Rich. I finished the last
You're
touches
welcome.
man, and I could not shut my mind off. I was like, it was, my mind is going nuts because of all the possibilities that I didn't really dig into before reading the book, which is
Oh,
a
that's so cool.
powerful thing. So I guess I just want to encourage you as well. I'm regretful for you that it took 20 years, but hopefully it only take a couple for the next book to come out.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I've already have some ideas for that one. It will definitely be a parable. The next one, because I loved the process. It was just so cool writing it. Yeah. And, and it was very growth oriented for me, in the sense of, like I said, thinking about John, the mentor, and really thinking about what advice and how does he show up, and what's the gap between me and him, and how can I be more of that? And it's just, I just started showing up more powerfully and, as a better human in my life, as I was thinking about becoming him. It was, really powerful. Kind of like the eulogy, but before he dies.
Yeah. I love the idea that every one of their, like, for the most part, every one of their, coaching sessions, mentorship sessions was like doing something outdoors, doing a challenging activity, rappelling down the side of a cliff, mountain biking, like all these cool things outdoors early in the morning. Like that fired me up also, like David and I just, hey, we need to get to the mountains. We need to get outside. We need to go do stuff. It was super motivating to me too. So I'm curious what, being the action seeker that you are, what's your favorite outdoor activity that you do?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I would have to say the one that gives me the most fulfillment is rock climbing. Something about it's very peaceful and grounding. And it's like, I love surfing, but there is a little bit of that aggro in the lineup that, it's scarcity, because it's like my wave. So I love it. I love it, especially if I was alone out there, which I've had, and that's amazing. But climbing is like a different type of community. People are always like, hey, do you want to jump on our rope? Or you want to, they'll give beta to each other and all that stuff. So I love that. But I mean, I love it all. I also love skiing. That's what got me into adventure sports. And, so in the winter, it's skiing.
Nice. Well, next year, when you're in Colorado, at some point, you got to hit us up, because we are huge snowboarders as well. So it's,
awesome.
It's something that, and fly fishing, I would highly encourage getting out of the mountains, because the way we do it is super long hikes, fishing holes, and just hitting it, being in nature. It's amazing. So I just throw that out there as a recommendation. You have some beautiful,
awesome. I've never tried it, but
in California. Yeah, it's incredible. So I'm curious. So you're kind of base is coaching, and then you started this business, which is effectively, I say basis coaching. You started out, you mentioned starting out coaching, building that business up, speaking, and this naturally transitioned, this business you guys are running now. Can you talk to us a little bit about what your business currently is, and how coaching plays a role in that as well?
Sure. Yeah, we've had as many as 27 employees, and then we have property teams that we refer to around the country. We help educate investors and refer them to these property teams that are separate businesses. So right now we have about 15 of those. We just got back from Florida 2 days ago from having a mastermind with all of them, which is amazing. We're just talking about best practices and how we can serve people better and all that good stuff. But with that said, the coaching is carried over to Real Wealth, in the sense of, and Kathy's also a certified coach. Once I got certified, she started to see my communication skills improve a lot. This is from her words. She's like, I don't want to be left behind. So she went and got certified as a coach as well. And so it's the style of coaching that we were trained in, we went to the Coaches Training Institute, and it's very Socratic. It's very much about drawing out. It's not teaching. It's not really that mentor. Like a mentor I see is like been there, done that. And then if you do what I did, you'll be where I am. Coaching, I really see the pure coaching is like really drawing out from something simple questions like, what do you want? What could you do? What will you do? How will I know you did it? That's the basics of it. Of course, it goes a lot deeper, and you learn to ask really powerful questions. But bringing that to our business and our company has been transformational in the sense of our culture. We do quarterly conversations with everyone does a quarterly conversation with someone, with their the person they report to, and all that. So I have the leadership team that I do quarterly conversations with, and it's basically it's a coaching conversation. How are you doing? Where are you at? Is there anything that's frustrating you? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Here, do you still see yourself here at Real Wealth, or moving on? What's your dream? What are your core values? So do they align with our core values? So I think that type of coaching and really empowering people. I mean, we're a remote company. We have been for over 10 years now, and 12 years now, actually. So there needs to be something with a remote company like that, where you're not looking over people's shoulders, and you have to really empower and have everyone be a leader. So we're a company of leaders, and constantly just checking in and seeing how people can have their own goals and be accountable to those goals. And so the coaching plays a huge part in that.
So I'm curious also, I know you guys are primarily into the single family rental space, and I know you've done some development work and some new buildings and stuff like that. But correct me if I'm wrong, you guys have never really gotten into, apartments and like commercial buildings of any sort, to my knowledge. And I'm curious if that's the case. Why stick just with single families? Most investors will go from kind of single family stuff and that kind of grow into apartments, commercial, multifamily kind of stuff. So
right.
Kind of curious why you guys have solely stuck in single family.
It's a great question. Yeah. Well, we did try it out, and we failed miserably. So that's part of it. Basically, we started off in 2003, helping people get into single family properties, 1 to 4 units in emerging markets. And then it was 2010, we had a developer come to us and say, hey, there's this project. This is after the whole fallout and Lehman Brothers collapsed and all that. And he said, there's this project up in Portland, and they are 20 million into it already. He owes $8 million on his construction loan and can't get it refinanced and can't pay it. And he said, so we can come in. He goes, I've negotiated with him already. We can get him out for $3 million. And so we did our first raise. It was our first syndication, and took that over and finished the project. It was a 40-year developer, 40 years of experience. So really good to have someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that went really well. Investors got a 22% return on their money. We invested in as well. And so we were like, oh, this is cool. So we started to syndicate more that type of syndication. And then after doing about 4 of those syndications, and we're like, well, okay, now we graduate, and now we do the multifamily thing. So there was in Indiana, we invested in these 3 big apartment buildings. We sent someone on our team out to go vet it, to walk through them. He walked through one of the buildings and was shown one of the buildings that was all rehabbed and nice, not knowing that the other 2 were just complete destruction. And so anyway, it just ran into major problems. And then there was theft and people stealing all the copper out of there and all that. So it really, more than anything, was Kathy. She's just like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do multifamily. We don't know it. It's not our lane. Let's stay in our lane. And I think that was a really good decision on her part, because then we just would focus on, we just know the residential development is our lane. And so that's what we've done. Now we've done ground up developments, probably about a dozen of them. And we do ground up, either entitling it and then selling it to a major home builder, or going all the way through to completing, a full subdivision of single family homes. And that's been really great. So it's kind of like our lane, and we're just sticking in our lane because it's what we really know. and let other people who are great at multifamily do what they do. Like we have, like Ken McElroy is a good friend of ours, and we just learned so much from him. And he's just, he's a professional who's got that down. But then he doesn't know that much about the single family area, it's really interesting.
Well, I think there's a ton of power in that. And when I talk to new investors, they're like, yeah, I'd like to really do this single family and move. And for some, I can't really explain why, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. Single family realm can be a pain in the butt sometimes, but I love it. And Stu and I love single family homes. We love, everything you can do with it, whether it's Airbnb, short term, or you're providing a home to someone in maybe C plus neighborhoods. And as much as there is a pain to it, we also we love it. And that's really been a focus. And my advice to other investors is, hey, find what you enjoy, because you may realize, you get more doors and it's sexy. Everybody's talking about you graduate and this language we use to go from single family to these other deals, but you may realize you hate it. Like you may realize you just hate, we did a couple of mobile home parks, and I don't think I'll ever do a mobile home park again, because it's just not. Is it making money? Yeah. Is it awesome? Yeah, sure.
And it's a different skill set.
And it's a different skill set, and it's not. We are very limited in our skill sets already, so we don't need to try to expand in areas that we don't know. So
especially David.
Especially me. But I think giving people permission to realize you can have great success in that focus, and you pick a lane, and your guys' maturity to be able to not just keep banging your head against that wall, but just to really develop the business you have is a testament to what focus can do, which I think it's a phenomenal point. And I don't know, is it your partnership and you guys encouraging each other? Like what has gotten you to get to that next level? If you have advice for folks that are starting out, and how to get focused and where they find that highest and best.
Yeah, it's a couple parts to that answer, really. One thing that we have seen is that there are people in single family who have stayed in that lane and are incredibly successful. And when you look at some of the hedge funds who have, 500,000 properties and they're doing really well, it's incredible. And I mean, it's how awesome has it been to be in single family, right, over the last 5 years, especially incredible, especially with COVID and people wanting to move into single families, and the profitability and the appreciation has been crazy awesome. So I love that. And then coming back to Kathy and me, and it's like how we operate, we obviously have our different strengths. I'm much more of systems and structures and putting things like that in place. Kathy's definitely the visionary, the idea, the networker, the connector, and she's just incredible in her sense of market research. She just knows, that's all she's obsessed with it. Market timing, knowing where people are moving, what's going to be happening. She called out she knew just from all her research and the experts she interviews and everything, she knew that the crash was going to happen in 2008. I was like, nah, there's no way, and she's like, no, I'm hearing this. And it's like, I was in complete denial. So it's a really good partnership in that sense of like, kind of almost following her lead. And then going in the beginning of the business, I was the chief support guy. That was my title. And I was like, whatever she needed, I built the website. I took her radio show CD and burned it and turned it into an MP3 and uploaded it to this new thing called podcasts on iTunes back in 2005. So it's like, that's kind of been my role, is to be the early adopter with technology and putting systems in place, and then bringing the coaching to our team. And she's got her role of just like seeing where things are going and making sure that we're prepared for that.
So I'll put you on the spot on behalf of Kathy. Is there another crash coming? Do we see, another downturn? What do you think?
She definitely does not think there's going to be another crash. No, it's a whole different world. Yeah, I get to sit, on the other side of her office door and listen in when she's on that new, the On the Market Bigger Pockets podcast. She's one of the co-hosts of that now. And that's one of the things they talk about all the time. Like, it's the crash, or do you focus on cash flow or appreciation and what's going to be happening here? And so she has so many facts and data, and the cool thing is she interviews these just high level people, like John Chang from Marcus and Millichap. He's a chief economist over there, and so many people that she gets her real information. And I'll also add onto that is, just like you guys, we got our information from the boots on the ground, right? And it's amazing how, like, going through COVID and the news was saying, no one's paying rent anymore and all this. And it's like, did you guys
Yeah,
experience a lot of
right.
that?
No,
No, same
everyone
with
was
us.
paying
And
rent.
yeah, so we're hearing from our boots on the ground and our teams and our property managers and everything. They're like, no, it's like we had 97% collections. It was just as strong. And
Yeah.
so it's like she's really obsessed about like not buying into the headlines. If anything, she looks at the headlines, and then she used to be in the news. That's where she got her degree in broadcast communications, and she worked for Fox. She worked for ABC7 up in the Bay Area. And so she knows that it's the old, if it bleeds, it leads, right? And she's trying to get, impose fear and get listeners and readers and all that stuff. She knows it's all just bullshit. So she
Man,
kind of,
you married up, Rich. I just
I
want to say
sure
you married
did.
up.
I sure did. I know that 100%, and always.
I'm just curious, because of the priority you guys put on it, and it's such a huge part of Stu in my life. But how old are your daughters? And if you don't mind kind of sharing where they are in life.
Yeah, absolutely. So our older daughter's 29. Our younger daughter's 22. Our older daughter just gave us a grandson 2 years ago. So now we're
Congratulations.
grandparents, which is
Yeah.
phenomenal. It's really,
Yeah.
really awesome. Yeah. Kathy's obsessed with him. It'd be so
Yeah.
funny. I'll be just working here, and then our older daughter lives only 25 minutes away, and I'll be working. All of a sudden I hear this little voice. She's like, I had to go get him.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's really great. He's super fun. And so older daughter is doing incredibly well. She bought her first house at 24 up in Chico, California. It appreciated. She sold it and used the proceeds from that to buy their house here, close to Malibu. And so it's incredible. So she's doing really well. Now she's doing, she's got her own, she's self-employed. She has an email marketing company, and she's just crushing it. Real high level clients and all. And then our younger daughter's 22. She just graduated from San Diego State with a degree on entrepreneurship and business management. And she's taking a year to travel the world. So right now she's in Bali. This is the last time I checked. She's in Bali. Her boyfriend just went out there, who's also in the military. He's a Marine.
Nice.
So yeah, really cool. Great guy. Hope he's my son-in-law someday.
Yeah.
And yeah, so she's traveling all over. She spent time in, she went to Thailand for a couple months, and so she gets back in June. So I miss her, obviously.
Yeah, that's incredible. Did you guys travel a lot when they were younger?
We didn't have the money that much to travel a lot. So we did really inexpensive, really fun, connected family vacations, like going to Yosemite and camping out overnight, and then going climbing together, or doing family ski trips, which are not cheap, but, so we put our focus more on, making the most of this state that we pay so much for taxes in.
Yeah.
But making the most, so much of California, from the surfing to the climbing to the hiking to the biking, we did a lot of things like that with our daughters for connection time.
That's
yeah,
great.
no, it's funny. I graduated from Mission Viejo High School, so Southern Cali.
Oh wow!
And
yeah.
we took a trip to San Diego, took the kids, and are going to take them again. But really trying to imbue them with the travel and get the bug and see different parts of the world, see different things. So I was curious, because I think one thing that I focus on is really what is whether my kids are watching me hug and kiss my wife and dance and have fun, so that my daughter has a model husband that she's going to look for, and my sons have a model of the husband that they should be. Like it's always present on our minds, and so you guys obviously being incredibly driven, but also very focused on your family. It just was I'm curious to see how that turns out, because it gives me hope that all the frustrations that we currently face with my young children will bloom into something different. So
yeah, it's the best. And so we had Krista, our younger one, Kathy interviewed her on the Real Wealth Show, all about just like financial lessons from a millennial. And she was saying the most important thing, and this seems counterintuitive, but for a kid, I call her a kid, she's not, but is that we never did handouts. When they wanted something, we helped them find a way to earn it, and how to be entrepreneurial. And they both want to be entrepreneurs. They both have found their own way. And it's what Krista said, which has surprised me on the interview, was she's like, I'm so glad that you guys didn't give me handouts, and that you showed me how to make my own way. So that was a huge one. Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed so far, but we just use these podcasts as like mentorship sessions for ourselves.
100%.
We just ask all these questions that we're thinking about. On that same note, how did you teach your daughters about the business, about all these things that you're teaching other adults how to do? Did you get them involved in your real estate business? Did you kind of teach them entrepreneurship lessons along the way? Like, how did you kind of ingrain them in that mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely asking them to help in some parts, in paying them, showing them. And then our younger daughter, Krista, still works for us. She does all our social media management. She just crushes it. Just
That's
amazing.
awesome.
I mean, she's done more social media than our whole team combined, right? On her own. So we brought her in on that, and she's serious. And so now she's handling all our social media from Asia right now. It's super cool. So
cool.
Yeah, bringing in then our older daughter, she did a lot of our running our events and webinars and all that in the beginning. And so that was huge lessons for her on kind of leading a team, being responsible and all that I think she's carried over to her own business now.
That's awesome. My 7-year-old came back from school the other day. It's kind of end of the year, and it's career day. So some parents are coming in and talking. I actually get to go today to talk about flying helicopters. But one person
Awesome.
last week, he was like a sports radio host, and she came home and she was like, "Dad, I want to do a podcast like you do, and like Enzi's dad does." I was like, "Awesome, let's do it." And so like we actually started recording some little podcast episodes with her. She's reading kids books, and she's going to call it the Kids Book Podcast. So I was like super stoked about that. So
it's
for
awesome.
all of our listeners,
they're always watching.
Yeah.
The kids are always watching. It's like it's that not the do as I say, not as I do thing, right? You flip that around, and it's like, do as I do. And it's like when we walk the talk, when we show up, like you said, you're, hugging kissing your wife and dancing and all that, or doing a podcast or being an entrepreneur or being present with your kids because you've created that type of lifestyle and business. I think that's what they're picking up on more than anything we say.
100%. Yeah. I love it. Well, Rich, I know you're a busy man. I know you got lots of other things to do besides just hanging out with us knuckleheads, but we really appreciate you coming on. I've learned a ton from this episode. I learned a ton just from reading your book. And I would highly recommend it. I said before we started recording, this is going to be a book that I'm going to give out to people, all friends
Awesome.
that I have, that I will be giving this book to people. So really appreciate your, everything that you've provided for us. It's been great.
Thank you so much. It's been great to be here. You guys are fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, thank you, Rich. And again, just want to encourage you. I know you've got 60,000 plus in your network, but I think there's probably quadruple that number of people that you're impacting. And you guys don't even know the number of people that listen to your shows, you and Kathy, the number of people that read your book, the number of people that just plug into you guys. And I just am so grateful for your example. And, we, like Stu said, we like leaving our podcast feeling like we owe our guests money because they gave us so much mentorship. So I just really want to encourage you. And we are extremely grateful for you and for what you do. And then for, spending this time with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm grateful for you guys. I love your focus. I love your attention of giving. Your whole business is all about giving and making a difference for people. It's like you don't focus on the money first. You focus on the difference you make. So I appreciate that too. So back at you.
Thanks, Rich.
Yeah,
so where do people go and get the book, and where can they find more information about you and your business?
It's on all major booksellers, but Amazon.com is definitely the best place if you want to keep it on the bestseller list or help me do that. It's been on the bestseller list for a month now since it came out. I'm really stoked on that. And then if anyone wants to learn more about the book, it's just thewiseinvestorbook.com, thewiseinvestorbook.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all those in the show notes. So guys and gals, go check out the book, go check out Real Worth Network. And all of that they can offer for education and financial literacy. It's been great. Huge impact to me. And give us 5-star reviews. We'd really appreciate it. If this made an impact on you, share it with somebody, tell somebody else about this podcast, and most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Hey, thanks, friends. Make it a great day.
Thanks, Rich.
See you later. Thanks.